Okay. Good morning to everybody here in a nice LA rainy day. We have at least 4 people at home, and we got some more than that in the classroom. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad you guys made it out in the rain. That means everything. You guys know, it means a lot, just getting here. It's half the battle. So, and it's LA rain. It's not like it's, wet. What other rain is there? Anybody? So let's take a look at where we were at. You guys remember this? We're looking at yesterday, these identities, right? These are known as half-angle formulas. Now, but if you look in your book, and I have your textbook here. Let me make it bigger. You're going to see sine of something like this, theta over 2, okay, equals plus or minus square root of 1 minus cosine theta over 2. Okay? And I know you guys can't see it, so let's make it so that you can. Uh-oh. Did I screw up? I did screw up again. Sorry. Let me get our iPad up and running. I hope I didn't really mess it up. All right. There we go. Whew, scary. Okay, so you might see this formula this way. And then you're going to notice something here. You're going to say, hey, this is plus or minus. Where in the world? This is not the formula that you derived from yesterday. Is that right? You guys know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's not the formula we did yesterday. The formula we did yesterday is right here. So just to kind of remind you, to share with you guys where that even comes from, because that's important. Sine theta over 2 plus or minus square root 1 minus cosine theta over 2. So you say, where does that come from? Well, it comes from solving by the square root formula. Because you have a variable, you got sine squared here. So this is a power 2. Okay? And so you got 2 solutions here, right? So I think that's kind of the idea, that people are aware that there's 2 solutions because it's plus or minus. Now, that's not the only, if you go back and look at what we did yesterday, you had cosine squared, you got tangent squared, right? So if we look at those things, you got cosine squared theta. You're going to use the same square root formula to get cosine theta over 2. Okay, but now you have 1 plus cosine theta over 2. So if you're looking back at the book and you go, oh my God, where's this formula come from? Well, same thing. Plus or minus square root 1 plus cosine theta over what? 2. Okay, and then you go, well, what about, and again, there's 2 solutions because you have the what? Plus or minus, right? And then you go, what about tangent? Well, you do have tangent squared, right? So square root formula again gets applied. So you have these 3 formulas here. Plus or minus square root, say 1 minus cosine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. Okay, and then again, you got this plus or minus here. And like I'm saying here, we have 2 solutions. Now, I want you guys to notice something right in here, okay? I want you guys to consider this. Let's actually look at this deeper, okay? I'm going to use the conjugate here, okay? Conjugate of the denominator, so you guys can be aware of this. Just focusing on that portion here. On top, you get what? 1 minus cosine theta now to the second power. On the bottom, we get 1 minus cosine squared theta. And so now you have 1 minus cosine theta squared over what? Sine squared of theta. Which gives you 1 minus cosine theta over what? Sine theta. Everything to the what? To the second power here. Okay, you guys okay with that? So you might say, is this under the radical as well? It sure is. So you're going to have now tangent theta going to be, you go, what's this, plus or minus? Okay. Square root of what? 1 minus cosine theta over sine theta. And that's to the second power here. Okay, so I want you guys to also remember this thing. The absolute value from algebra can be described this way. Okay, you guys okay with that? Oh, and I forgot here an important detail here. Theta over 2. Theta over 2. So I'm just going to give this to you here. Tangent theta over 2 will be plus or minus the absolute value, that 1 minus cosine theta over sine theta. Now, I want you guys to note what the book says. The choice of plus or minus simply depends on the quadrant theta over 2 lives. Okay, so this is going to be an important issue. The plus or minus depends on the quadrant that the half angle lives in. So even if you look at your book, or we say, let's look at, again, Math 241, you got this cheat sheet. Let's kind of scroll in. Right? We can see above the half angle formulas, not exactly in this way. Okay? In the upper right. But the book has the more detail for you guys. Then you have all these formulas. So what I'm really remarking to you is you should really see that we're kind of going over some of these formulas here, right? Where they came from. They just didn't fall out of the sky. They were derived, and we're looking at them. So just want to kind of remark about these versions here. No. There you go. Okay, so let me go back over here. So there's these versions, just to kind of go over some of that detail for you guys. Anyway, okay. All right, so let me kind of do something here for you guys and give you guys some example here. So they may say, determine the exact answer, okay? This is how we want to use these formulas. And they're going to give you now cosine of 22.5 degrees. Okay, so notice this here. What would you guys say this is? 22.5 degrees. Notice the topic. What's our topic? Do you guys know? The topic is what? Half angle. Okay. So what is this angle if it's 22.5? Isn't this what? Isn't that 45 degrees over 2? So this would be cosine of what? 45 degrees over 2. Right? Easy breezy lemon squeezy. So if they want you to do that, you might say, I have to go to cosine half angle. Is that right? And notice, what is cosine half angle? Copy. Here's a half angle formula. And then remember what I just said. Your choice of what? Theta depends on this. Cosine 45 degrees over 2 plus or minus square root of 1 plus cosine of what? What do you guys notice? I want you guys to compare here. This is the half angle, and then this is the full angle. Is that right? So it's cosine 45 degrees divided by 2. Now, stop and think about this. We're just using the formula. And stop and think, what is our choice of sign for plus and minus? What does it depend on? It depends on the quadrant. This is going to be what? Where does this live? Quadrant 1. So what about 22.5? Is cosine positive or is cosine negative? So this is going to be the positive version. And then what's cosine of 45 degrees? 2 over 2. Is that right? Now everything over what? 2. Okay, you guys okay with that? Oh, because the angle of 22.5 degrees here? This is 22.5. That lives in quadrant 1. It's a 22.5 degree angle. So would it make sense to say cosine of 22.5 is negative? You know what I mean? So you're going to have to go, oh yeah, cosine is positive for that angle. You know, so it's because of the square root formula. And then here, you say, well, how do I actually add here? Well, replace 2 with what? sorry, replace 1 with 2 over 2. So what do you have now, ladies and gentlemen? Square root of what? 2 plus square root of 2 over 2 divided by 2, right? Which will be 2 plus square root of 2 divided by 2. That's all under the radical. And then that'll be times 1/2. Which is 1/4. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. You have like what's called a nested, you got this nested square root, you know, inside. You had a square root within a square root. So this is going to be the arithmetic or the algebra for that half angle. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, you can. And sometimes people say, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to do the square root of a numerator over the square root of a denominator, square root of 4, which will be what? 2. 2 plus square root of 2, everything over 2. And there you go. Okay, so this is kind of a classic formula here. Now, give you another example. What if they say tangent of what? 15 degrees. Okay. Notice that that's going to be tangent of what? 30 degrees over 2. Is that true? Okay. What was that formula we had? Plus or minus absolute value of what? One minus cosine over sine. Is that right? And in all honesty, you say, well, this angle lives, where's 15 degrees live? Take a look at this interesting thing. Right? This lives in quadrant 1. What do we know about the answer? The answer is strictly positive. Is that true? So you say, do I just put positive 1 minus cosine theta over sine theta? And I'll say you can, but you know the answer is what? Positive, so you can remove this absolute value sign. Because there's no way tangent will be negative, right? So what's the full angle going to be now? You say, this is 30, so this has to be 30. This has to be 30. That's the full angle. Is that right? So I just need to know what cosine 30 is and sine 30. Is that right? So remember that day I said, hey, memorize that special triangle. Man, was I what? I was righter than people can, right? 60 degrees. 30 degrees, 2, 1, square root of 3. Cosine of 30, what's cosine 30? Yep. And what's sine 30? Is that 1/2, right? So this one's going to be 1/2. Well, this one's going to be what? Square root of 3 over 2. So notice your arithmetic now. 2 over 2. Isn't this going to be the following? 2 minus the square root of 3 over 2 over 1/2. And then these 2's go away, right? So it's simply 2 minus the square root of 3. And I'm not sure why that rings a bell, but it does. Oh, I know why. Because remember what we did to get this answer before? I think we did the difference formula. Remember that one? Came from the difference formula. Easy breezy, lemon squeezy. That was the difference formula because 45 minus 30, and we've seen that one. That's what I'm saying. 2 minus the square root of 3 looks very familiar to me. And then, if you said, what if they gave me, for example, sine of what? 9 pi over 8. And now you went into radians, right? You go, oh, I don't like radians. Well, convert it to what? Convert it to degrees then. So this would be 9 pi over 8 times what? Do you guys remember? 180 degrees over pi. So your pi's cancel. So you get 9 times 180 divided by what? 8. Is that true? And that's in degrees now. So double check. What does that actually give you? Anybody know? You can say the following here, right? 9 times, can I divide both 180 and 8 by 2? So it's 90 degrees over what? 4? Is that true? Okay, so we say 9 times 90 divided by what? 4. What does that give you? 202.5 degrees. Okay? So this is sine of, if that's 202.5 degrees, okay. That's 400 and what? 5 degrees divided by 2? Is that what it is? My Lord. And then, what do you guys know about this angle? 405 degrees. What is it coterminal to? It's 45 degrees. Is that true? Yeah, that's what we're looking at here. So this is 202.5 degrees, right? Which is 405 degrees over 2. So this angle here is, well, what color is that? We're going to keep it in blue. So maybe you want to go, wait a minute, what quadrant is that in? Let's double check here. How can you kind of think about this, right? Are we on the right track? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what? All students take what? Calculus. So let's stop and think about this. Oh, sorry. Apologize. Okay. So where's 202.5 degrees? Quadrant 3? By the way, sine will be negative. Is that right? So let's put that here. So you can't take 405 and say, oh, that's coterminal to what? 45 over 2, because that would be quadrant 1. Is that right? So you might say, what do we do here then? Well, what does a half angle formula say, right? Let's do it this way. Are we good with that idea? You guys understand what I'm saying? Half angle for sine says what? Let's go back to the half angle formula. Here's what we'll have to do. We can't look at it that way. Here's the half angle. So this is 405 over 2. We know sine's negative here. Is that right? So you're going to say, okay, the answer is going to be negative. But if we put 405 over 2 here, right? That goes here. This is 405 degrees. So we're going to get minus square root 1 minus cosine 405 degrees, everything over the number 2 here. This is what I was getting at about coterminal. Okay, you guys okay with that? Now we can use coterminal information. What do I mean by coterminal? Isn't this cosine of what? 45? In other words, 405 degrees is coterminal to 45. Now we can use coterminal. We can't use it in the beginning. We have to use it here. Okay, so you guys okay with that? Still negative. Now, we know what cosine of 45 is. This is what? Square root of 2 over 2. So this is negative 1 minus square root of 2 over 2 over 2. Minus square root of 2 minus square root of 2 over 4. We did the arithmetic already. Minus 2 minus square root of 2, everything over 2. Okay, you guys okay with that one? What do you think? Okay? Interesting? Should I give you guys another one? Have you guys tried this one? Have you guys tried this one? Sine of 112.5 degrees. Give you guys some time. Find the exact value. This is what they're going to say. Okay, we're going to give you guys some time for that one. And there it is. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, double check to see, am I doing this okay? What do I mean by that? Where does the half angle live? How is that in quadrant 2? Sign's positive, is that right? So here's what you get. Sine 225 degrees is the square root of 1 minus cosine 225 degrees. Everything over what? 2. I'm sorry. That's 112, right? So do you guys want to tell me again, why is it positive? Because the half angle is in quadrant 2. All students take calculus. Sine's positive, right? You guys okay with that? All right, now I have to find cosine of 225. So I guess maybe I have to draw my picture. Is that right? All students take calculus. Where is this angle? Isn't that quadrant 3? Okay, so if this whole thing is 225 degrees, right? What is this going to give you? 45 degrees. Okay. So what do we know? Cosine of the reference angle is square root of 2 over 2. Is that true? But cosine of the angle now, because this is in quadrant, what, 3, is negative square root of 2 over 2. Okay, you guys okay with that? Notice how finding exact angles is important. So now this means that we have what? Square root of 1 minus a minus square root of 2 over 2 divided by 2. Is that right? What's minus a minus give you? Plus. And we've seen from past calculations, right? Do you guys know what this is going to give you? 2 plus the square root of 2 ultimately over what? Over, yeah, it's going to be square root of 4, which you're right, is going to be a 2. Okay? So double check, ladies and gentlemen, with this stuff. Notice finding these exact angles are pretty what? Are pretty important. They're pretty fun. Okay, so notice that. We're looking at putting all of that detail together. And now even looking at the book here, you know, they're going to give you questions like this. Determine what? Sine x over 2, cosine x over 2, and then tangent x over 2. So here's the example. Okay, they're going to say now cosine of what? X equals negative 4/5. And then the angle, they're going to say, is here. Okay, you guys okay with that? So it's just like yesterday. How do I find half angles? Sine of a half angle, cosine. You're going to have to use the formula. But go back here now. Okay, here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. What do we know? All students take what? Calculus. So if you're going to use the half angle for sine, remember that? Go back to the sine half angle right here. Okay? Okay, do you guys remember? What do we do with that information, plus or minus? Which one is it? What does this depend on? Do you guys remember? Yeah, depends on where what? The half angle lives. Is that true? Because you already got cosine of the angle. What's cosine of the angle? Right? This is the angle they're talking about. I know I put theta, but they want you to put here that negative 4/5. So this portion here, you're going to put negative 4/5 here. Okay? You already have that because they gave it to you. So what do they really want you to know? Where does this angle live? Do you guys know? Go back up here. You're going to divide the left by 2, the middle by 2, and the right by 2. So this gives you now 90 degrees less than x over 2 less than, what's 270 divided by 2? 135. Okay? What quadrant does this live in? This is a quadrant 2 angle, ladies and gentlemen. So in quadrant 2, what do we know? This is where the half angle lives. We know, what is that? We know sine is what? Is positive, is that right? So sine is positive in quadrant 2. So just put now the positive relationship, 1 minus negative 4/5 over 2. Is that right? Which is 1 plus 4/5 over 2. What do I do with the number 1? This is what? 5 over 5. 9/5 divided by 2. Do you guys know what that is? 9/5 divided by 2. What's that going to give you? 9/5 times 1/2. What does that give you? Square root of 9 over 10. So by what? We could rationalize the denominator. So you're going to get now 3 square root of 10 over 10. Okay, you guys okay with this? So you're going to just depend on where that quadrant is. Easy breezy lemon squeezy. I'm going to say, what's the key to these formulas here? Right in here, you're going to have to find where the half angle lives. That's what they're going to give you. Okay, just divide. Remember, when you have inequalities, you can divide by a positive number. It doesn't change the sign, direction. So it's 2 is positive, so you're going to get the half angle. You know, they're going to do something like this now for you guys. Should we do that one? Okay, tangent x is 1. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. We forgot what? Yeah, we forgot to find the other 2. Oh, okay, whatever. Why does it goes to the eraser? All right, copy. Now you guys remember, what if it's cosine? You guys remember the difference? Maybe? This is going to be now what? Plus. Now, where does your half angle live? Quadrant 2. Is that true? What does that mean for cosine in quadrant 2? It's negative. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be what? Negative square root 1 minus 4/5 over 2. Negative. How do you take a whole number with a fraction? 5 over 5. 5 minus 4 over 5 divided by 2. So negative square root 1/5 divided by 2. Negative square root. Yeah. It is negative. Well, but remember the formula is what? Formula is plus, so addition of a negative will make that a negative. Yeah. Yeah, and now you go, what is this? Well, this becomes what? Negative square root of 1 over... So it's negative 1 over the square root of 5. If you rationalize the denominator, negative square root of 5 over 5 here. Right, and then you go, what about the tangent now? You go tangent half angle. Right, so we're going to go here. Well, let me go back up here. And by the way, if you look in the book with that formula here, I'm going to write it down for this question. The book is going to say, I'm going to get rid of the absolute value sign. Okay? Now, there's a very good reason. So here's what the book has. There's a very good reason because remember, the sign is all based on where this lives. Right? So where does your half angle live? That's going to determine your sign. So you don't have to have the absolute value because it's going to be taken care of with what? The plus or minus here. So you say, oh, is that why the book does that? That's why the book does that. Now we know this lives where? Where does tangent live? Or where does this half angle live again? Quadrant 2. What do we know about tangent in quadrant 2? Right? In quadrant 2, we know cosine's negative and we know tangent is negative. So what does that mean? It's the negative sign. And say 1 minus... Well, they told me cosine's negative 4/5. Is that true? Okay. But what do you guys need now? You go, oh my God, sine of theta. Okay, so we need sine theta. Cosine theta is negative 4/5. Theta is in what quadrant? Do you guys know what? Well, how do we know it's in quadrant 3? Because they told us. What did you say? They told us? Yeah. 180 to what? 270. You guys see what I'm saying? I know this is theta. It's not x. That's quadrant what? That's quadrant 3, isn't it? So the actual angle's in quadrant 3. What do you guys know about that? Tangent's positive. But sine is what? Negative. Is that true? So what I'll say here right away is that they're going to tell us what quadrant. And that means sine here is negative. Okay, because these are all full angles right here. This is a full angle. This is a full angle. It's not a half angle. Half angles are defined in terms of the full angle. So if I go now here to my what? Reference angle here, okay? Cosine is going to be what? 4 over what? 5. Is that right? How do I get the opposite side? Because I need sine of theta. I already know it's going to be negative. Anybody know what this, how I get this? Call that B. If you said, do I use Pythagorean theorem? Maybe. 5 squared is 4 squared plus B squared. 25 is 16 plus what? B squared. B squared is 25 minus 16. And B squared is 9. What does that mean about B? So B is going to be positive 3. Okay? So sine is actually negative what? 3/5. Okay, so sine is going to be negative 3/5. So what are you going to put down here? Negative what? 3/5. Negative what? 1 plus 4/5 over a negative what? 3/5. Isn't a negative over negative going to be negative? 1 plus 4/5 over what? 3/5. It's 5/5. So what do you end up with here? 9/5 over 3/5, which is going to give you 9 over 3, or just the number what? 3. Okay? There you go, ladies and gentlemen. How about you guys try one on your own? You guys want to try one? Or you might say, right? How about this? Let me do, yeah, you kind of don't want to mix some of these up, but, and I don't really like this question. I'm going to say, cotangent is 5, 180 less than x, less than 270. So I forgot to give you guys a clock here. Let's have that there. out. Okay. If cotangent is 5, what does that mean about tangent? Do you guys know? It's 1 over 5. Is that true? And so for all of these identities, first of all, notice what you're going to need. I'm just going to remark here because we're running out of time. We're going to need what cosine is, right? We need, just like before, what cosine is and what sine is. Okay? So we need cosine and we need sine. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. All students take what? Calculus. Okay? Now, where is this angle? What did they say here? Right? Do you guys know? What does this mean up here? That means, what quadrant is this? 180. Isn't this quadrant 3? So your angle's in quadrant 3. Now, what does that mean? Sine's negative, cosine's negative. Is that right? Because all students take what? Calculus. Is that right? So I want you guys to know those are negative. Now, how do we actually get those values here? You guys know? Go to the reference. We say tangent is opposite over adjacent. What is the hypotenuse? Isn't that what? Square root of 25 squared plus 1 squared? Isn't that the square root of 26? All right. So that's the square root of 26. So what do you think that's going to mean for us? I don't know. That means sine of the full angle is what? What does that mean? Do you guys know? This is the full angle here. Sine of that full angle is going to be what? Negative 1 over what? Square root of 26. We can rationalize the denominator. And then cosine of the full angle, what's cosine? Adjacent, and it's going to be negative as well. Is that right? So it's going to be 5 over the 26 here. Okay? So these are all what? Negatives. Easy breezy, lemon squeezy. Okay, now what are the formulas going to be? I'll go over here. Cosine half an angle. Remember, cosine half an angle is this formula, and then we're going to have what? Sine half an angle is also what? This formula, 1 minus what? Cosine theta over 2. Okay, so you can rationalize these denominators. This will be 26, and then you're dividing by 26. Is that right? And then up here you'll have what? Square root of 26, and you're dividing by 26. So just be aware, again, this is plus. These are all the full angles. What is tangent? You guys remember? Isn't that 1? It's plus or minus. Is that 1 plus cosine theta, I believe? Divided by what? Sine theta. Okay? Now, what do we do with this information? Do you guys remember? We have to handle the what? Plus or minus. How do you guys handle plus or minus? You go back up here and you say, okay, what's the half angle? Where does these half angles live? And again, this is going to be a 90 degree less than half angle less than, is that 135 degrees? Is that right? What quadrant is that in? Second quadrant. What do you know about quadrant 2? Sine is what? Positive. It's x over 2. So sine's positive. You go, what does that mean? Well, this one's going to be positive here. And the others are going to be what? Negative. Because only sine's positive. Be negative, negative. Okay? So notice you got cosine already here. Negative 5 square root of 26 over 26. Negative 5 square root of 26 over 26. Negative 5 square root of 26 over 26. And then sine is going to be negative what? Square root of 26 over 26. Okay, and we're kind of out of time, but I want to remark you would do now. What would you guys really do now? Do you guys know? You simply just do the arithmetic. You're going to replace this 1 here. All of these 1s get replaced with what? Yep, 26 over 26. So that you can add your fractions. Okay, you guys okay with that? We might see the conclusion of this. However, remember what I did here. What I did is I updated your what? Your homework so you guys know to start to work on some of these questions here. Okay? And this is over the stuff that we actually did. So anyway, what do you guys think? Half angles? Not too bad? What's probably going to be the issue? Arithmetic. Right? You guys know 26 minus, and it's actually not too bad if you guys want to know the truth. I can share with you some of the arithmetic because you're not combining any terms. Like if you look at the first one, right? We say, what's cosine of this is going to be what? Negative 26 minus 5 square root over 26. This is over 26 divided by 2, right? So what I'm saying here for the first one, you get 26 minus 5 square root of 26. This is going to be now, what is this going to be? Oh, you can't see, sorry. 52. That would probably help tremendously. Okay, you guys see what I'm saying here? Here's some of the arithmetic. You would only need to simplify the denominator. Right? So I think that's 4 times 13, by the way. Let me double check. That's 2 square root of 13. So if you went further to rationalize that denominator, here's what you end up with. You get minus square root. I would say put 26 minus 5 square root of 26 times that 13 over 2 times 13, which is 26. It's negative. So you would have just the arithmetic to do, in all honesty, there. Okay, and you do it for the others. So it's kind of taking that whole number of 1, looking at it as 26 over 26, and plugging that in. So anyway. All right. Okay, you guys. Got a nice video. Take care. Stay safe. Have a wonderful day.